If you watched my last video and thought, wait, is my job actually a risk? Well, there's something even more uncomfortable you need to hear. In most cases, people don't lose ground at work because they did anything wrong. They lose it because the one person who was supposed to protect their position didn't do their job. And the worst part, most professionals never realize this is happening until it's too late. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Thomas Schmidt, and I've spent over 3 decades as a technology and business executive, including roles as COO, CMO, and head of product, leading teams through multiple industry and technology disruptions. Now I work as a consultant, helping organizations optimize how they manage technology, streamline operations, and sharpen both their marketing and product strategies. But I also help mid-career professionals reinvent their careers for what's coming next. And that's why I make these videos, to give you practical insights that help you stay relevant, competitive, and excited about your future. And before we dive in, if you find this type of content useful, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. That really helps the channel massively and informs YouTube to show this content to more people who need it. Thanks a ton. All right, let's get into it. If your career has stalled, it might not be because you did something wrong. You showed up, you delivered, you did what was asked, and more. But somehow momentum slowed anyway. No clear feedback, no real development conversations, and no next step that actually materialized. You're told that you're doing great, yet nothing changes. Promotions happen around you, yet opportunities bypass you. And when you try to understand why, the answers feel vague or incomplete. And here's the uncomfortable possibility most people never consider. Your manager may have failed you. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but in a way that quietly stalls careers, especially for capable, dependable people. And unless you understand how this happens, it's easy to keep blaming yourself, while the real issue goes unaddressed. Alignment. What this looks like day to day. What makes this so frustrating is how normal everything looks on the surface. You're still busy, your calendar's full, your work gets done. But when you look closer, something's missing. Conversations about growth never quite happen. Feedback stays high level. Oh, you're doing great. Keep it up. We'll talk about next steps later, but later never comes. And when you ask about advancement, the answers are vague. There's nothing open right now. Timing isn't right. Let's revisit this next cycle. Meanwhile, you watch others move ahead. Sometimes it's people with less experience. Sometimes it's people who seem no more capable than you. And you can't quite figure out what they're doing differently. So you start second-guessing yourself. Maybe you're being impatient. Maybe you need one more win. Maybe this is just how careers work at this stage. So you keep your head down and keep delivering. But there's no clear signal that anyone is actively investing in your development. No roadmap, no stretch assignments that actually stretch, no conversation about where you're supposed to be heading. It feels like you're performing well in place. And that's the hardest part. Because when nothing is explicitly wrong, it's difficult to justify feeling stuck, even when you are. And if this sounds familiar, it's not because you're ungrateful or entitled. It's because something important isn't happening and you can feel the absence of it. The beliefs that keep you stuck. When this goes long enough, most people settle into a set of assumptions that feel reasonable, but quietly work against them. They tell themselves things like, well, if I just keep performing, they'll notice. Or when the timing is right, they'll tell me. My manager knows I want to grow. Well, these beliefs are comforting because they remove friction. They let you stay focused on your work instead of asking uncomfortable questions. And for a long time, they may have even been true. Earlier in your career, effort often did get rewarded. Managers did take an active role in developing people. Career paths felt clearer and more predictable. So it's natural to assume that the same rules still apply. But here's where the tension builds. You wait for direction that never comes. You assume silence means patience is required. You interpret vague encouragement as progress. And slowly, weeks turn into months. Months turn into cycles, and cycles turn into years. And what makes this especially dangerous is that nothing ever triggers a clear warning sign. No performance issue, no explicit no moment that forces action. Just a steady state that you're working hard without moving forward. And that's why this pattern persists, because from the outside, it looks like stability. but from the inside, it feels like something important is being deferred indefinitely. How managers actually fail their best people. Here's the part that most people never see. Many managers don't stall careers because they're careless or incompetent. They stall them because of what they're actually measured on. Most managers are rewarded for delivery, not development, for hitting deadlines, for keeping teams stable, for reducing risk. Growing someone takes time, attention, and political capital, and often creates short-term disruption. Losing a strong performer, even to a promotion elsewhere, creates immediate pain. So managers make a quiet trade-off. They rely on the people who deliver without friction. They protect the team members who make their own job easier. They delay development conversations because nothing is on fire. And over time, that avoidance becomes a pattern. And high performers get praised, but not stretched. Trusted contributors get leaned on, but not advanced. Capable people become indispensable to their current role and invisible to the next one. This isn't malicious, it's structural. The manager isn't asking, how do I help this person grow? Rather, they're asking, how do I keep things running smoothly right now? And when those incentives collide, development is usually the first thing to lose. And that's how careers stall quietly. Not because someone failed, but because no one was actively steering them forward. Why this failure is so common right now? What makes this especially damaging today is that the environment quietly reinforces it. Organizations are flatter than they used to be. Promotion ladders are shorter. Fewer roles exist above the one you're already in. And at the same time, managers are under more pressure than ever. They're responsible for more people, more output, more change with less time to think long term. So development becomes optional, not because it isn't important, but because it doesn't solve today's problem. And when budgets tighten or priorities shift, managers default to what feels safest, keeping reliable people exactly where they are. That creates a strange contradiction, because the more capable you are, the more useful you become. The more useful you become, the harder it is for your manager to imagine moving you. And the longer that goes on, the less visible your growth becomes outside of the team. Meanwhile, organizations talk endlessly about growth, learning, and mobility, but rarely build the systems that force managers to act on them. So the burden quietly shifts, not onto performance, not onto results, but onto whether someone actively advocates for your development. And if that advocacy never happens, even strong careers can plateau without a single decision ever being announced. What to do when your manager won't develop you? Well, the moment you recognize this pattern, waiting becomes the biggest risk. But this isn't about you blaming your manager, and it's not about forcing an uncomfortable conversation either. It's about changing the way you engage. So instead of asking for vague feedback or future promises, you need to start anchoring conversations around direction and dependency. You need to ask questions like, what decisions do you want me to own this quarter? Where does my work reduce risk for you? What outcomes would make my role easier to move forward? These questions do two things. First, they surface whether your manager is willing and able to invest in your growth. Second, they shift the conversation away from effort and toward impact. And if the answers stay fuzzy or non-committal, well, that's information. It tells you that development isn't being prioritized, not because you're failing, but because the system isn't set up to support it. And at that point, the goal isn't to wait longer. It's to start creating momentum elsewhere through cross-teamwork, ownership of outcomes, or visibility beyond a single manager or even the company. Because careers don't stall when people underperform. They stall when no one is actively steering them forward. And if this video reframes something for you, that's not accidental. Many people spend years assuming that their careers stalled because they weren't doing enough, when in reality, no one was actively developing them. That's not an excuse, but it is clarity. So once you understand how this failure happens, stop waiting for permission that may never come, and start making decisions with more intention about where you invest your energy, who you rely on, and what to expect from leadership. And if this resonated for you, please comment below. I read every one. And if you want practical guidance for navigating mid-career challenges, make sure you're subscribed, because the earlier you take ownership, the more options you keep. Until next time, take care, be kind to yourself, and keep leaning into what makes you strong. And I'll see you in the next one.